Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hey, what's up? I'm Sabrina Clarke and I love to upload film, beauty, and lifestyle videos to this channel. If you're new, welcome. I hope you enjoy your stay. I hope you enjoy it enough to subscribe, stay around, click the bell, get notified, be a part of this little family thing we have going on, and give this video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. What else? I think that's all for the business. As you can tell from the title bar below, today's video is going to be the first of the three things I listed, aka a film review. I'm really excited to bring this to you guys. This is the first time I've ever done like an actual sit-down film review. I've always talked about films with my brother or my friends after I watch them, and we usually tend to like break them down as much as I am going to do in this video. So, without further ado, if you would like to hear my thoughts on the film Detroit, then please keep watching. So the film that I'm going to be reviewing today is the film called Detroit by Kathryn Bigelow. It only recently came out, and I just wanted to give you guys a description. I'm on imdb.com, well, the app, and one of the production companies that is a part of it, Annapurna Pictures, has taken the liberty of writing a little description, so here it is. Detroit is the true story of one of the most terrifying moments during the civil unrest that rocked Detroit in the summer of 1967. Amidst the chaos of the Detroit Rebellion, with the city under curfew, and as the Michigan National Guard patrolled the streets, 3 young African-American men were murdered at the Algiers Motel. 50 years after the events of July 25th, 1967, the question remains, what happened at the motel? That's a pretty good summary of what happened in the film, and that's pretty much all I have to say. I wanted this review to be as objective as possible, so you'll hear me tackling each category for what it is, not really going into the social implications of the film, because I don't think that I think that that's a very subjective approach and can often skew the actual effectiveness of the devices in the film. With that said, I will say that this film was very hard to watch. So if you don't like violence, or if you love to live in ignorance or bliss and like to think that police brutality isn't real, then this is not the film for you. However, if you want to learn more about why some people act the way they do towards the police, then this is definitely something that will help you get educated, because Kathryn Bigelow spends about maybe a minute and a half in the beginning, probably just a minute, giving you like a quick catch-up, like history lesson, so you're given an opportunity to really understand why these things were catalyzed. But other than that, that's basically the only social thing, the only opinion-related thing that I want to relate to this film, and I want it to be entirely your decision to watch it and to decide whether or not it is, something that interests you. Since I'm bringing this new format to my channel, I wanted to let you guys know the basic formula of how I'm doing this entire thing. So I'm going to be critiquing Detroit and other films in the future based off of 3 categories: style, performance, and structure, and I'm going to be ranking each category out of 10, adding up all those numbers, giving it a final score out of 30, and then a letter grade. In the category of style, I have things like direction, color palette, and under direction, it's more like camera angles used or types of cuts, whether it's jump cuts or fade-ins, fade-outs, etc., and how those devices are actually used to make the film either better or worse, or carry out the things in the plot that needed to be carried out. So with that said, I want to start with the colors used. This film is directed by the lovely Kathryn Bigelow. If you've heard of her, it has been from the films The Hurt Locker, starring Jeremy Renner, and Zero Dark 30, starring Jessica Chastain. So when I was thinking of the color palette used in Detroit, I was thinking about those also used in her other 2 films that I've seen, and I would say that they're sort of similar but different enough. The colors used in Hurt Locker are very subdued but very earthy as well. So all three of those films, Hurt Locker, Zero Dark 30, and Detroit, are all war-ish like, very violent or aggressive. So I think that the use of more subdued colors helps to not attack the eyes all at once. So it makes the films actually a lot more easy to digest or take in, because it is a lot of technical information. And when you have a lot of colors thrown on top of it, whether it's like high saturation or really bright, it just makes it a lot for the brain and for audiences to break down and decide whether or not they enjoy or whether they can follow along. As I was saying before, Hurt Locker uses more subdued colors but still earth tones. So because it's going down in Afghanistan, she used colors like the army fatigues, which are khakis and greens, but still faded enough. A lot of sand, so you get a lot of tans. If there's an orange, it's not very saturated, it's not very orange, it looks kind of faded out. And as I said before, those colors help to just establish and set the scene while also allowing us to not be pulled away from the plot itself. Zero Dark 30 was sort of similar. I would say that there was a little bit more saturation in that film, because even though there were moments taking place on the battlefield, there were a lot of things taking place inside boardrooms or a lot of meetings happening. Every desk, I think, was like dark wood, I want to say. So things were cooler toned and a little bit more saturated, but still neutral, like very neutral colors. Nothing that was too bright or too contrasted enough to really pull the audience away from the plot and the direction of the film. The same thing can be said for Detroit, I would say, because, okay, the colors are a little bit warmer, and I think that that's mostly just as a characteristic of the 70s, but other than that, there wasn't that much color taking place. You had blues of the police uniforms, the greens from the National Guard, the darker blues from the state police, and that's about it. So those three colors sort of took place in the same color family, and then everything else was relatively neutral. The next thing on style I want to talk about is aspect ratio. I don't know the exact dimensions, but when I was watching it in the theater, it looked a little bit more square than the other films that she'd done. Next up, I want to talk about the sort of quality of the film in terms of how it was shot. It looks very shaky, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it has a very handheld quality to it. What I mean by that is it looks like Catherine was actually holding the camera while cutting back and forth between all of these shots and all these moments in time. You have a lot of zooming in and zooming out, and with that is my first major drawback, which was when you zoom in very quickly and when you have this handheld feature, you lose focus. As in, this picture could be out of focus right now that you're watching. If so, I apologize. I filmed these by myself. But when you're moving so quickly and you're moving handheld, you don't have an opportunity to stop the frame and focus it on whatever is in question, and then cut back. When you do that, you lose the handheld quality, and it doesn't look as cohesive as it should. So that was the major thing for me that kind of irked me, because there was this one specific moment where Al G. Smith's character by the name of Larry was being called to testify, and it cut to the actual him actually opening the envelope, pulling out the letter, and you see the letter, but you don't read anything on it because it was too blurry. So that frustrated me. I wish that she had used focus a little bit better. So with that said, that is all that I have to say about style. I really loved the direction of the film. It was very quickly cut and quickly shot. It caused me to feel a lot of the same like anxiety feeling, like, you know, if you watch something and you feel your breathing pick up in time with the actors, you know that there's something going right there. And I appreciate how the emotion of the actual scenes were being reflected through the direction of each shot. So with that said, I would grade the style category out of 10 as an 8 because I feel like the focus thing was the biggest thing for me. It really just frustrated me because when you have that handheld quality, it's great and all, but it has to be used in the best moments. It has to be used wisely. The next category that I have is performance. I really don't have much to say here because the performance in Detroit was done very well. I would say the biggest standout actor was probably John Krasinski, who has recently been taking on a lot more serious roles since The Office, and I have loved every single thing he's been in ever since. The actor with the hardest jobs, well, I would say 2 of them, were probably Will Poulter and John Boyega, both of whom did a phenomenal job. John Boyega played up the nuances of his character very well. I was quite impressed with his ability to really go back and forth between being this sympathetic African American and also being a family man and also being a professional, if that makes sense. So he goes between all 3 of those moments in the character's life pretty well, and I think that registered, what's the word I'm trying to use? I think it came across well enough to be seen as a pretty decent performance. I wrote here in my notes that Will Poulter equals genius, and I don't know what else to say about that because it's the truth. Willie did an absolutely fabulous job going back and forth between all of your other performances. You know, I took you incredibly seriously in The Revenant, and I'm taking you even more seriously in Detroit, so shout out to you, you're amazing. With that said, with the performance category ranked out of 10, I would give it a 9. In order for it to be a 10, I don't even know, it would have to be, I would say the minor players would even have to be top notch, and I feel like that's asking a lot, so there you go. The final category that I have is structure. Now, this category I put in this entire review because as a screenwriter, I have to pay a lot of attention to act structure and how the plot flows, how the story navigates itself through all 3 acts. To clarify, films tend to have 3 act structures. So Act 1, you have mostly setup. Act 2, you have all of your things happening, so your actual story is mostly being carried out in Act 2, taking the devices from Act 1 and putting them to use. And then Act 3 is your conclusion or resolution, where everything gets wrapped up, tied up, we see where our characters end up, and you end your film and everyone goes home. With that said, I will be critiquing the structure of this film, and I have to say that unfortunately is my lowest ranking category because I just think that Act 1 spent so much time building up so much and very little of it was used in Act 2, and that was my main frustration. I just didn't understand why I was spending so much time looking at, like, there's an opening scene in the first act that had absolutely nothing to do with anything. I don't understand why it was there. Act 2 spent most of the time that you're sitting in that theater, you are watching the actual Algiers motel altercation go down. And that's okay, but it's not okay when you spend a lot of time in Act 1 in the first 15 to 30 minutes, I'm gonna say, the first 30 minutes of the film, building up, setting up a lot of characters using less than half of them. Yeah, and then introducing new ones in the second act. So, and then Act 3 was resolution, but then it ended up with a lot of like, it's sort of just like a really quick summary of what happened in the court case, and then they bring up a lot of characters, they bring back the characters that survived the night and put them on the stand, have them saying a couple outlandish things, and then you get to the verdict, and then you get to the end sequence, and that was it. That frustrated me quite a bit because I wanted to see more of how their lives were actually affected. So my solution would be, if she'd spent less time setting up the riots in the first act, then cut down what was happening in the house just a little bit, just a little, and then put that time taken from Act 1 and put it in Act 3, we'd be golden. Anything else? Yeah, okay. Yes, so that is basically an accurate conclusion of how I feel of the structure. And with that said, I would give, out of 10, the structure a 7. And I think that that's quite generous because of everything that I just said. So, there you have it. That is my very first film review, which leaves us with the following points. With style at an 8, performance at a 9, and structure at a 7. Add that all up and you get 24 out of 30, which is a B. That's pretty much it. If you enjoyed this film review, please give it a thumbs up. In the comments down below, let me know other films you want me to review. And in the meantime, I will see you when I see ya. Bye!
I love you, babe.